I'm going to run through setting up an element system from unpacking it to configuring it to actually having it do something. The elements case I'm going to be working with today is our SCIF 80, which is our single row SCIF. It fits 4 of our modules. It has USB, MIDI in and out, and DC. I'm going to be just using the MIDI, the USB power. You can use either or, but to configure it, you're going to need to connect it to your computer and use USB. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up your Elements Alchemist application. So you're going to need to plug in your Elements USB connection, and once you have it plugged in, you will see a light on the Elements brain light up, knowing that it's connected. And you will need it connected because you cannot run the application unless you have it connected. So launch Elements Alchemist, and this is where you'll do everything from configuring your setup to changing the MIDI settings. Any other kind of customizations you want to do, you're going to have to do in the Elements Alchemist application. So I'm going to start here with an empty rack, like I just bought the system, and I'm just using it. Here's all the elements we currently have in our store. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the elements that I am using, that I actually own, into my collection. My collection is essentially like my owned elements. So once you have everything into your collection, if I own more, I obviously would have them in here. You want to just configure the elements you have in your rack. So I'm going to configure my 2 4F4B elements first, and then I'm going to put in my 16K and then my 16B. It's important to note that whatever order you're going to load these in here, you're going to need to also load them in on your virtual rack here on your computer. So if I had this reordered differently, my settings would be different. So this is how I want my setup to be in my performance. I want to be able to have these 2 4F4B modules here, so I can have 8 channels with mutes. And then I want to have my device control here, and to my right I want to have my clip launching. This is just the setup I like. This is the way I want to work. That's the beauty of this system, is you can create the system based on how you work. Alright, so you'll notice when you first drag your elements into your rack, it populates this area here. This is the same area as your elements brain here, and this tells you how to plug everything in. All the connections on the elements are 10-pin ribbon cables, and when you buy your elements, this will come already connected, so all you have to do is plug it into your rack. So looking at my first 4F4B, I need to have the 4F4B in the first slot in button, LED, and analog. So I'm going to locate on the back of my element, I'm going to locate the slide, the buttons, and the LEDs. So your slide is your analog connection, buttons and LEDs are obviously your button and LED connection. Now the brain has these jumpers in it. What this does is this grounds unused analog connections. If you don't have these grounded off, then you will have streaming MIDI. So all you need to do is, however many you're going to be using, here it tells me that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 slots. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove 4 jumpers so I can connect my ribbon cables. You don't have to worry about grounding out buttons or LEDs, only the analog connections. The digital connections, they won't, they're just waiting for a switch, so you don't have to worry about those. So make sure the red line on your ribbon cable lines up to the red line, to the arrow on your pin header here. So I'm going to plug in my first analog connection. This is my LED matrix connection, so I'm going to plug that in again, making sure that these lines match up. Make sure you have the connection plugged in right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and plug in my button matrix. So I have my first module connected, and you'll see it already has lights on it because I have Ableton Live opened up, and I already have my setup the way I want it, so this will automatically work like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the modules. So I have all my modules lined up. The only thing I need to do now is screw everything in. So the next thing I'm going to do is screw all of my connections in. Before I do that, I like to make sure everything's working properly. So I'm going to open up the tools window here, and I can just go ahead and press some different MIDI functions and make sure I have everything, make sure everything's sending something. So as you can see, I have data's working, everything's kind of sending data here, so I'm going to go ahead and, now that I know everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and screw everything into the housing. Okay, I'm just tightening up now that I have all my modules loaded in the rack. I'm just tightening everything up. All in all, it should take you about 10 minutes to start from opening up your box, configuring, and placing your modules in. Okay, now everything's already set up. I'm going to go here. I have a little Ableton Live set going, and the way I have this set up, and this is how I would work, which is the nice thing about the system is everything's set up how I would work. So you'll see that I have all my faders here. I already have tracks playing, and then I have, these are all mutes. I have a device rack, which is on my master track. I have all my device rack effects. This is my favorite effects here. Then I have my clips. All in all, it should only take about 10 minutes to unpack, configure, and set up your own custom element system.